Find a comfortable position now. Let your body sink into whatever is holding you. Let your hands rest open and loose. Close your eyes if you haven't already. And allow your breathing to slow, just slightly, just enough to notice. There is a hillside garden in the old city of Kyoto where the cherry trees have bloomed every spring for 300 years. The locals call it the Garden of 10,000 Petals, though nobody has ever tried to count them. Some things are better left unmeasured. You arrive in the late afternoon, when the sun hangs low enough to turn everything amber. The path from the street is narrow, just wide enough for two people to walk side by side, and it rises gently through a bamboo gate whose wood has been polished smooth by generations of hands. Beyond the gate, the world opens. Cherry trees line both sides of a gravel path, their branches so heavy with blossoms that they arch overhead like a cathedral ceiling made of pale pink flowers. Each tree is different. Some are young and slender, their branches reaching upward. Others are ancient, their trunks twisted and knotted with age, their limbs stretching outward in wide, generous curves. The blossoms themselves are extraordinary. Each one is no bigger than your thumbnail, 5 delicate petals arranged around a tiny yellow center, but there are so many of them that the effect is overwhelming. They cluster together in soft bunches, each cluster brushing against its neighbors, creating an unbroken canopy of pink and white that filters the sunlight into something warm and diffused. You walk slowly beneath them. There is no reason to hurry. Let your breathing settle into whatever rhythm feels natural, not forced, not counted, just the easy rise and fall that your body already knows. The gravel beneath your feet makes a soft crunching sound with each step. It is a pleasant sound, gentle and rhythmic, and it becomes a kind of meditation as you walk. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. The pace is unhurried, almost ceremonial. Other people are here, but they move quietly, speaking in low voices or not speaking at all. In Japan, Hanami, the tradition of gathering beneath cherry blossoms, is not about spectacle or noise. It is about presence, about sitting still in a beautiful place and letting that beauty settle into you, the way rain soaks slowly into dry earth. You find a spot partway up the hillside, where a particularly old cherry tree spreads its branches over a patch of soft moss. Someone has placed a woven mat beneath the tree, and there are cushions, flat, firm cushions covered in indigo fabric, arranged in a loose circle around a low wooden table. You sit down on one of the cushions and feel the coolness of the moss beneath the mat. The ground is slightly damp from an afternoon shower that passed through an hour ago, and the air smells of wet earth and something sweet, the faintest fragrance of the cherry blossoms themselves. Your shoulders can drop a little lower now. There is nothing you need to hold up, nothing that requires your attention. On the low table, someone has laid out the components of a simple evening meal. There is a thermos of green tea, still warm, and a set of small ceramic cups, rough-glazed, earth-colored, each one slightly different from the others. There is a lacquered box containing rice balls wrapped in nari, their surfaces glistening faintly. There is a plate of pickled vegetables, bright pink ginger, pale green cucumber, amber-colored daikon, arranged in neat rows. And there is a small basket of strawberries, their red skin beaded with moisture. You pour tea into one of the cups. The steam rises in a thin, curling line that catches the light before dissolving into nothing. The tea is slightly bitter, slightly vegetal, and it warms you from the inside as you drink. A petal falls from the branch above you and lands on the surface of your tea. It floats there, a perfect pink disc on a field of pale green, turning slowly in the faint steam. You watch it spin. There is something hypnotic about it, the way it moves without effort, carried by forces too small to see. Your jaw can release its tension now. Let your tongue rest against the roof of your mouth, or not, whatever feels most comfortable. More petals fall. Not many, just 1 or 2 at a time, drifting down through the still air with the kind of lazy grace that only things without urgency can achieve. They land on the table, on the cushions, on your shoulders. Each one weighs almost nothing. You could hold 100 of them in your palm and barely feel their presence. The sun continues its descent, and the quality of light changes with it. What was amber becomes gold, and what was gold becomes something deeper. A warm, honeyed glow that makes the cherry blossoms look as though they are lit from within. You eat slowly. A rice ball, dense and satisfying, with a small piece of pickled plum hidden at its center. The combination of bland and sharp, soft and firm, is quietly perfect. You follow it with a slice of pickled ginger that tingles on your tongue. The strawberries are ripe almost to the point of splitting. When you bite into one, the sweetness fills your entire mouth. You eat 3 more, taking your time with each one, noticing how the flavor changes, the first bright and immediate, the last more mellow, as though your palate has learned to expect it. Your eyes can rest now. Let them close fully if they haven't already. There is nothing you need to see that this story cannot show you. The hillside garden extends above you, terrace after terrace, each one planted with cherry trees of different varieties. The ones nearest to you have pale pink blossoms, almost white in certain light, while those higher up the slope are deeper in color, ranging from rose to a dark, dramatic magenta that looks almost artificial against the green of the moss. Between the terraces, narrow stone steps rise upward, their surfaces worn smooth and slightly concave from centuries of footsteps. Moss grows in the gaps between the stones, and small ferns unfurl from cracks in the retaining walls. Everything here has the patient, settled look of a place that has been tended with care for a very long time. A bird calls from somewhere in the canopy above you. It is a bush warbler, the bird that the Japanese call yugisu, and its song is a distinctive, fluting whistle that rises and falls in a pattern as reliable as breathing. The sound is part of spring in Japan, as inseparable from the season as the cherry blossoms themselves. You lean back against the trunk of the old cherry tree and feel its rough bark through your shirt. The tree is solid and warm, heated by the afternoon sun, and it supports your weight without complaint. You could stay here for hours. Let your thoughts slow now. They don't need to stop. Just let them drift like petals on water. As the sun sinks lower, lanterns begin to appear throughout the garden. They are paper lanterns, round, glowing spheres of soft light, strung on thin wires between the cherry trees. Someone is moving quietly along the path below you, lighting them one by one with a long-handled taper. Each lantern comes alive with a warm, golden glow that makes the petals around it look like tiny embers floating in the air. The effect is magical, not in the dramatic sense, but in the quiet, understated way that the best magic works. The garden is being transformed, petal by petal and lantern by lantern, from a daytime place into a nighttime one, and the transition is so gradual that you can barely tell where one ends and the other begins. The temperature drops a degree or two as the sun disappears behind the western hills, and the air acquires a slight coolness that feels pleasant against your skin. You pull a light shawl around your shoulders. It was folded beside one of the cushions, and the fabric is soft and warm. More tea, you pour another cup and cradle it in both hands, feeling the heat seep through the rough ceramic walls and into your palms. The petal that landed earlier has sunk to the bottom of the cup, and you can see it through the translucent green tea, resting against the glazed interior like a pressed flower in a book. Your breathing has probably slowed by now without you noticing. That's good. Let it continue at whatever pace it has found. The garden is quiet now. The families with children have left, and the remaining visitors are those who came specifically for Yasakura nighttime cherry blossom viewing. They sit in small groups beneath the lanterns, their voices low and warm, their laughter soft. A gentle breeze moves through the garden, and the cherry trees respond with a sound like distant rain, a whispering, rustling, sighing sound as millions of petals shift and settle against one another. It is perhaps the most peaceful sound in the world. Not silence exactly, but something better, a living, breathing quiet that wraps around you like a blanket. Petals fall in greater numbers now, loosened by the breeze. They drift and spin and tumble through the lantern light, each one catching the glow for a moment before disappearing into the darkness below. You watch them fall. It is endlessly fascinating, the way each petal takes its own path, following currents and eddies in the air that you cannot see, but the petal navigates with perfect grace. In Japan, there is a phrase for this Hanafubuki, which means flower blizzard. It describes the moment when the blossoms fall in such numbers that they resemble snow. You are not quite at that stage tonight, but you can imagine it, a soft storm of petals, warm and pink, coating everything in a fragrant layer of spring. Your body is growing heavier now, more settled, more rooted to the spot beneath the cherry tree. A temple bell sounds from somewhere beyond the garden walls. It is a single, deep, resonant note that vibrates in the air for a long time before fading into silence. Then another, and another. Each note is spaced far apart, giving you time to absorb it fully before the next one arrives. The sound is both ancient and immediate. It connects this moment, you, here, beneath this tree, in this garden, on this spring evening, to every other spring evening that has unfolded in this place over the last 300 years. People have sat where you are sitting now. They have watched the same blossoms fall. They have listened to the same bell. There is something profoundly comforting in that thought. The knowledge that beauty persists. That spring returns. That cherry trees bloom and petals fall and people gather to witness it, year after year, century after century, with a faithfulness that puts human constancy to shame. You finish your tea and set the cup down on the table. The garden has settled into its nighttime rhythm now, the lanterns glowing, the petals drifting, the warbler singing its evening song from somewhere you cannot see. You don't need to follow this story anymore. Just let the images come and go as they please, like petals on a breeze. The moss beneath you is cool and soft. You can feel it through the mat and cushion, a gentle reminder that you are sitting on the earth, connected to something much larger and much older than yourself. The tree at your back is steady and warm. The air smells of blossoms and wet stone and green tea. A cat appears from behind the cherry tree. It is a calico, patches of orange and black and white, and it regards you for a moment with the serene indifference that only cats can achieve. Then it settles beside your cushion, curling into a tight circle with its nose tucked under its tail, and begins to purr. The sound is soft but steady, a continuous vibration that you feel more than hear, and it adds another layer to the garden's already deep sense of peace. The warbler above, the bell beyond the walls, the rustle of petals in the breeze, and now this, the contented purr of a temple cat who has chosen your company for the evening. Let everything grow softer now. The light, the sound, the feeling of your body against the cushion. The stars appear. First one, bright and solitary, directly overhead, and then others, emerging slowly from the deepening blue as though someone is turning up a very faint dial. The cherry blossoms look different against the night sky, darker, more mysterious, their edges traced in starlight. The lanterns sway gently. Their light pools on the gravel paths and the mossy terraces, creating islands of warmth in the cool darkness. Between the islands, the garden is shadow and suggestion, the shapes of trees and stones and steps, familiar enough to know but dark enough to imagine. You are warm beneath your shawl. The cat purrs beside you. The bell has fallen silent, and the warbler has tucked itself into the branches above, a small, round shape barely visible among the blossoms. The garden will be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. The blossoms will fall, and the leaves will come, and the seasons will turn in their slow, reliable way. But tonight, this particular night with these particular stars and this particular cat and these particular petals drifting through this particular lamplight, tonight is unrepeatable. And that is what makes it precious. Let yourself drift now. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Just rest here, beneath the cherry tree, as the petals fall softly around you. The garden breathes, in and out like a sleeping thing, gentle and slow. The lanterns flicker, the blossoms whisper, the cat purrs, and you are part of it all. A quiet presence beneath an ancient tree, in a garden of 10,000 petals, on a spring evening in Kyoto that will never come again. And that is enough. That is more than enough. Sleep well. The petals continue to fall in the darkness, each one invisible until it passes through the cone of lantern light, where it glows for a single, perfect moment before vanishing again. The garden holds you. The night holds you. The spring holds you. And somewhere on the other side of sleep, the morning is already preparing itself, warm and golden and full of promise. But that is a long time away. For now, there is only this: the blossoms, the breeze, the stillness. Rest now. Rest. Time passes in the way it does when you have stopped counting it. Minutes and hours lose their edges and blend into something softer, a continuous present that has no urgency and no end point. You shift on the cushion, not because you are uncomfortable, but because your body wants to settle even deeper. The moss gives slightly beneath you, absorbing your weight the way a good mattress absorbs the tension of a long day. You can feel the earth beneath it, solid, cool, ancient, and the feeling is grounding in the most literal sense. The breeze has died down, and the petals are falling more slowly now. Each one takes longer to reach the ground, turning and spiraling through the still air as though reluctant to complete its journey. You watch one particular petal, slightly larger than the others, with a faint pink blush at its center, as it releases from a branch above you and begins its descent. It does not fall straight down. Instead, it catches some invisible current and drifts sideways, passing through the glow of the nearest lantern, where it flares briefly into gold before continuing into shadow. It tilts, it spins, it pauses, suspended for a moment on nothing at all, and then continues downward, landing at last on the sleeve of your shawl, where it rests against the fabric like a small, perfect gift. There is nothing you need to think about right now. Let the story carry you, like a petal on still air. Down the hillside, the gravel path has taken on a soft luminescence in the lantern light. You can see it winding between the cherry trees, a pale ribbon of crushed stone that gleams faintly where the light touches it. No one is walking on it now. The last visitors have either settled into their viewing spots or departed for the evening, and the path belongs to the garden itself. A small stone fountain sits at the junction where two paths meet. Water flows from a bamboo spout into a shallow basin carved from a single piece of granite. The sound it makes is simple and repetitive, a hollow, musical plonk as each pulse of water strikes the surface of the basin, and it adds a metronomic steadiness to the garden's already soothing soundscape. Plunk, pause, plunk, pause, plunk. The rhythm is slow enough that you can feel your heartbeat begin to synchronize with it, or perhaps it is the other way around. Perhaps the fountain was designed, centuries ago, to match the resting heart rate of a person at ease. Either way, the effect is calming in a way that goes deeper than thought. Your hands are resting now, palms up or down, whichever feels right, heavy and warm and completely at ease. The cat beside you stretches in its sleep, extending one paw forward and then curling it back, its claws appearing briefly before retracting. Its purring has not stopped. It continues in a low, steady drone that vibrates through the cushion and into your leg. The sensation is oddly therapeutic, as though some deep tension in your muscles is being loosened by the frequency of it. You notice things you did not notice before. The way the bark of the cherry tree has vertical striations, thin, peeling bands of reddish-brown that curl outward from the trunk like delicate scrolls. The way the moss beneath your mat is not one uniform green, but dozens of greens, emerald and jade and olive and lime and a dark, almost black-green where it grows thickest in the shadows. The way the lanterns cast circles of light that overlap at their edges, creating zones of increased brightness where two circles meet. The way the gravel path reflects the lantern glow unevenly, brighter where the stones are wet and darker where they have dried. These are small observations, tiny, inconsequential details that you would never notice in the bustle of a normal day. But here, in this garden, on this evening, with nothing to do and nowhere to be, they become fascinating. They become a form of meditation, a way of paying attention to the world that quiets the mind more effectively than any deliberate technique. Let your attention soften. You don't need to focus on anything. Let the details come to you instead of reaching for them. Higher up the hillside, where the terraces become steeper and the trees more densely planted, you can see the faint glow of additional lanterns, smaller ones, hung lower, creating intimate pools of light among the older, larger trees. That part of the garden feels more secluded, more private, as though it exists in a slightly different world from the one you are in. You imagine climbing those stone steps in the morning, when the sun is fresh and the dew is still on the moss, and finding a different garden entirely, one made of light and birdsong instead of lanterns and silence. Both gardens are real. Both exist in the same space. The only difference is time and the quality of attention you bring to it. But morning is a long way off. There are many hours of darkness yet, and each one is unhurried and generous, offering more rest than you could possibly need. The night is not a gap between 2 days. It is a place in itself, deep and still and full of its own particular beauty. The bell sounds again from beyond the walls. This time it is softer, as though the person ringing it is further away or using less force. The note hangs in the air like a held breath, vibrating at a frequency that you can feel in your chest before it fades into the general silence. Let that sound fade, and as it does, feel yourself settling even deeper, like a stone sinking gently through warm water. You close your eyes, or perhaps they were already closed. It is hard to tell, and the garden becomes a landscape of sound and sensation. The creak of a tree branch shifting under the weight of its blossoms, the distant murmur of water in the fountain, the whispering sigh of petals adjusting themselves in the breeze that has returned, barely perceptible, from the east. The fragrance of the cherry blossoms is stronger now, or perhaps your senses are more attuned to it. It is not a heavy scent, nothing like roses or jasmine, but rather a faint, almost subliminal sweetness that you catch in brief waves, as though the blossoms are breathing it out in rhythm with the breeze. Mixed with it is the scent of the moss, damp, green, slightly vegetal, and the deeper, earthier smell of the soil beneath the trees. These scents layer over one another, creating an olfactory landscape as complex and nuanced as the visual one you were observing a few moments ago. The shawl around your shoulders feels like an embrace. The cushion beneath you feels like a nest. The tree behind you feels like a friend. Everything in this garden is oriented toward your comfort, your ease, your rest. You are held here, safe and warm and completely at peace. There is nothing the world needs from you tonight. A soft rustling in the undergrowth tells you that some small creature, a hedgehog, perhaps, or a fat garden toad, is making its way through the moss on its own evening business. You do not need to see it. Its presence is enough. The knowledge that this garden is alive at every scale, from the ancient trees to the tiny creatures moving through the darkness beneath them, adds a richness to the scene that is comforting rather than distracting. The lanterns sway, the petals fall, the fountain counts its hollow beats, and you drift in and out of awareness, each return finding you more settled, more relaxed, more deeply rooted in this place and this moment. There is a word in Japanese, mono no aware, that translates roughly as the gentle sadness of passing things. It describes the emotion you feel when you watch cherry blossoms fall, knowing that their beauty is inseparable from their brevity. They bloom for a week, perhaps two, and then they are gone, scattered by the wind, dissolved by rain, returned to the earth. But the word is not about sadness, exactly. It is about a tenderness that opens up when you recognize the impermanence of something beautiful, a softening of the heart, a willingness to feel rather than to think. And in that willingness, there is rest. The blossoms fall, the night deepens, the cat purrs, and you rest in the center of it all, as still and as present as the ancient cherry tree that holds you in its shadow. Let go now of the story, of the garden, of the images in your mind. Let them dissolve like petals in water, and sink into sleep the way the earth sinks into spring, slowly, completely, with perfect trust. The last thing you are aware of is the feeling of petals landing on your skin, so light they are almost nothing, just the faintest brush of something soft against your cheek, your forehead, the backs of your hands. Each one is a small benediction. Each one says, the world is gentle. The night is kind. You are safe. Sleep now, the garden will be here when you wake. And the cherry blossoms will still be falling. Rest. Time has lost its shape. It pools around you now like water around a stone in a slow river, warm, unhurried, going nowhere in particular. The garden has entered its deepest state of stillness, the kind that only arrives in the hours when most of the world is asleep. But you are not quite asleep. You are in that liminal space, that soft, gray borderland between waking and dreaming, where thoughts arrive not as words but as images, and the images drift past without requiring any response. A cherry blossom garden in Kyoto at midnight. No, you are still here. The garden is not a memory or a dream. It is where you are, right now, beneath a 300-year-old cherry tree, with a calico cat purring at your side and the scent of wet moss and green tea lingering in the cool air. You are exactly where you need to be. There is no other place, no other time, only this. The highest terrace of the garden is barely visible from where you sit, just a faint constellation of lanterns among darker shapes that might be trees or stones or both. You imagine the view from up there, the entire garden spread below, a cascade of pink and gold, with the city of Kyoto beyond it, its own lights echoing the lanterns like a distant mirror. But you have no desire to climb. The view from here is enough. The 3 cherry trees nearest your spot have formed a natural enclosure, a room without walls, floored with moss and roofed with blossoms, and within this room, everything you need is present. The thermos of tea, still faintly warm. The basket of strawberries, nearly empty now, their small green caps scattered on the table like tiny crowns. The low wooden table, its surface dusted with fallen petals. The cushion beneath you, warm from your body heat. The cat asleep, its breathing synchronized with your own. The tree, steady and patient, its bark rough against your back. The sky deepening toward midnight blue, its stars appearing one by one like lanterns being lit in some enormous, inverted garden. Each breath takes you a little deeper. Each exhale releases something you were holding without knowing. There is a tradition among the monks of the nearby temple, you seem to know this, though you cannot remember how, that on the first full moon of cherry blossom season, they walk through the garden in single file, carrying no lanterns, guided only by the moonlight filtering through the blossoms. They call it the path of petals, and they walk it in complete silence, paying attention to nothing but the next step and the next breath. Tonight is not the full moon, you can see it hanging in the western sky, a thick crescent that casts more shadow than light, but the principle is the same. Attention. Presence. The deliberate narrowing of awareness to this moment, this place, this breath. You do not need to try. The garden does the work for you. It has been designed over centuries to bring people to exactly this state, this quiet, this stillness, this ease. Every stone was placed with intention. Every tree was planted with care. Every path was laid to guide the visitor not just through the garden, but through the layers of their own awareness, from the busy surface to the calm depths below. Let the garden carry you now. You don't need to walk or think or remember. Just be here, like the moss on the stone, like the petal on the water. A nightjar calls from beyond the garden walls, a purring, churring sound that is somehow both urgent and lazy, like a small engine idling in the dark. It is a night bird, rarely seen but often heard, and its call is as much a part of the Japanese spring night as the cherry blossoms are a part of the Japanese spring day. The sound rises and falls in a loose, wavering pattern. Not a melody exactly, but a rhythm, something between a hum and a heartbeat, that fills the spaces between the other sounds. The fountain, the breeze, the settling of petals. You let the nightjar's call enter you without analysis, without identification, without thought. It is just sound, moving through air, reaching your ears, passing through. Like everything else in this garden, it asks nothing of you. It simply is. The temperature has settled into something cool but not cold, the kind of spring evening that is exactly right for a light shawl and an outdoor cushion. Your body has adjusted to it perfectly. You are neither too warm nor too cool. You are in equilibrium. Your body knows how to rest. It has been doing it your whole life. Trust it now. Let it do what it does best. The oldest cherry tree in the garden, the one they say was planted by a samurai who had laid down his sword, stands at the crest of the third terrace. You cannot see it clearly from here, but you know it is there, its massive trunk scarred by lightning and wind and 3 centuries of ice and sun. Its branches still heavy with blossoms that open every spring as faithfully as they did when the samurai first tamped the soil around its roots. That tree has seen everything: wars and weddings, earthquakes and festivals, the slow transformation of Kyoto from a capital of emperors to a city of temples and tourists and ordinary people living ordinary lives. Through all of it, the tree has simply grown. Year by year, ring by ring, it has added to itself, becoming larger and more complex and more beautiful with each passing decade. There is a lesson in that, though it is not one you need to articulate or even understand. It is enough to feel it, the deep, slow certainty that growth happens, even in stillness. That rest is not the absence of progress, but its foundation. You are growing, even now, even in stillness, even in sleep. The paper lanterns are beginning to dim. Their candles, real candles, not electric lights, are burning lower, and the circles of light they cast are shrinking, pulling inward, creating smaller and more intimate pools of warmth. The effect is of the garden slowly closing its eyes, settling into its own kind of sleep. But the cherry blossoms are still visible, even in the diminished light. They have their own luminosity, a faint, phosphorescent glow that comes from within the petals themselves, or perhaps from the starlight that has found its way through the canopy. Whatever its source, the glow is real, and it turns the garden into something like a dream, a place where the boundaries between the real and the imagined become soft and permeable. You watch the blossoms through half-closed eyes. They seem to float in the darkness, untethered to branches or trees, like constellations of pale pink stars arranged in organic, flowing patterns that shift and rearrange themselves with each breath of wind. A petal lands on the back of your hand. You feel its weight, almost nothing, a whisper of pressure against your skin, and then the faintest coolness where moisture from the petal touches your warmth. It is such a small sensation. In any other context, you would not notice it at all. But here, in this state of heightened quiet, it registers as clearly and completely as a handshake or an embrace. This is what it feels like to be fully present, not working at it, not trying, just allowing yourself to notice what is already here. The cat shifts in its sleep, pressing more firmly against your leg. Its fur is soft, impossibly soft, the kind of softness that makes you wonder how something made of the same proteins as your own hair can feel so different. You rest your hand on its side, feeling the rise and fall of its breathing, the steady vibration of its purr, and the warmth of its small body against the cool evening air. You and the cat are breathing together now, in and out, in and out. The same rhythm, the same depth, the same unhurried pace. It is as though some invisible conductor has synchronized you and the cat, and the garden, and the fountain, and the falling petals, into a single, unified composition of rest. The crescent moon has moved further west, touching the silhouette of the mountains with its lower edge. By the time it sets, you will be deeply asleep, truly, fully, restoratively asleep. And the garden will continue its quiet vigil around you, unchanged and unchanging, a sanctuary of moss and stone and blossom that asks nothing and gives everything. Sleep is close now. You can feel it, warm and dark and inviting, like sinking into a bath of still water. The last lantern gutters and dims, its flame reduced to a tiny orange point that flickers once, twice, and then disappears, leaving behind a thin curl of smoke that the breeze carries away. The garden is dark now, not the complete darkness of a sealed room, but the soft, textured darkness of an outdoor space lit only by stars and the dying moon. In this darkness, the blossoms are invisible, but you can still feel them falling, the lightest possible touch against your skin, your hair, the fabric of your shawl. Each one is a small good night. Each one is the garden saying, "We are still here. We are still falling. We will still be falling when you wake." And you will wake. Tomorrow morning, when the sun finds you beneath this cherry tree, you will open your eyes to a world that has been refreshed overnight, dewdrops on the moss, fresh petals on the gravel, the warbler singing its first song of the day from the highest branch. But that is hours away. Hours and hours of deep, unbroken rest, given freely by a spring night that has no intention of rushing. Let go now, completely. There is nothing left to do. The garden holds you. The night holds you. The spring holds you. Rest. And the petals fall. And fall. And fall. Rest. And still the garden holds you. The darkness has a texture to it now, velvet soft, layered, like fabric folded over itself many times. You can feel it against your eyelids, gentle and complete, and within it there are no shapes or shadows, only rest. Somewhere deep in the garden, the bamboo water feature, a shishi-odoshi, the deer chaser, completes its cycle. The hollow bamboo tube fills slowly with water from a thin stone channel, growing heavier by the smallest increments until, at last, it tilts on its fulcrum and empties with a musical splash into the basin below. Then it swings back, its hollow end striking a round river stone with a deep, resonant clunk that carries through the still air like a single note plucked from a bass string. Splash, clunk, silence, and then the slow filling begins again. The Japanese garden designers who first placed the shishi-odoshi here understood something fundamental about the relationship between sound and rest. It is not silence that relaxes us. True silence is unnerving, unsettling, a void that the mind rushes to fill. What relaxes us is a particular kind of sound, predictable in its rhythm, but unpredictable in its exact timing, simple enough to ignore, but interesting enough to prevent the mind from wandering into worry. The shishi-odoshi is a masterpiece of this principle. You cannot anticipate the exact moment when the bamboo will tilt and empty, because the flow of water varies slightly with each cycle. But you know it will happen. And that combination of certainty and uncertainty creates a state of gentle anticipation that is, paradoxically, deeply relaxing. Splash, clunk, silence. Let the sound carry you, further from wakefulness, deeper into rest. You notice, without effort or intention, that the moss beneath you has begun to release heat that it stored during the day. It is barely perceptible, the slightest warmth rising through the woven mat, but it adds another layer of comfort to your already comfortable position. You are nested here, held by the earth below and the blossoms above, by the cat at your side and the tree at your back. A fox crosses the gravel path below the third terrace. You do not see it, your eyes are closed, but you hear the rapid, light tapping of its paws on the crushed stone, quick and purposeful, the sound of an animal going somewhere specific with no time to waste. The sound passes from left to right and then fades as the fox disappears into the undergrowth beyond the stone wall. The garden accommodates everything: day visitors and night foxes, ancient trees and new blossoms, silence and sound, solitude and company. It does not choose between them, it simply makes room. You can make room too, for rest, for quiet, for the deep, restorative sleep that is waiting for you just below the surface. The stars have shifted. Orion, which was visible earlier above the eastern hills, has moved westward, and in its place new constellations have risen, ones you do not recognize but whose light is as old as the cherry tree you are leaning against, and older. Much older. The light from those stars left its source hundreds, thousands, millions of years ago. It has been traveling through the void of space at an incomprehensible speed, passing through dust clouds and gravitational fields and the vast emptiness between galaxies, all to arrive here, tonight, in this garden, where it lands on the petals of cherry blossoms and on the closed eyelids of someone who is very nearly asleep. There is something humbling in that thought, something that puts into perspective the worries and plans and anxieties that normally occupy your waking mind. Against the backdrop of starlight that has traveled for millennia, your concerns, real and valid as they are, become very small. Not unimportant, just small. And in their smallness, they lose their grip on your attention, and your attention is free to settle into rest. Everything is held by something larger. The garden is held by the hillside is held by the earth is held by the sun, and you are held by all of it. The crescent moon has set now, slipping behind the western mountains with a final glimmer of silver. The garden is darker than before, but your eyes, if they were open, would have adjusted completely. You would see the cherry blossoms as pale shapes against the deep blue-black sky, and the stone pathways as lighter ribbons winding through the darkness, and the trunks of the trees as dark verticals that anchor the scene. But your eyes are not open. They are closed and have been for some time, and behind them the garden continues, not as a visual experience but as a felt one. You feel the weight of the blossoms above you. You feel the steadiness of the tree behind you. You feel the soft, continuous vibration of the cat's purr against your leg. And you feel sleep, not approaching but arriving, like a tide that has been rising so gradually that you did not notice it until it was already here. It is warm. It is dark. It is completely, utterly safe. The garden has done its work. 300 years of careful tending, of pruning and planting and stone setting and path laying, all culminating in this. A single person, on a single evening, finding rest beneath a cherry tree. That is what gardens are for. Not for show, not for photographs, not for the approval of others. But for this, the quiet, private moment when a human being stops struggling against the world and allows the world to hold them. The world is holding you now, the way the earth holds the roots of the cherry tree, gently, firmly, without condition. The shishi-odoshi sounds one more time. Splash, clunk, silence. And in that silence, you are asleep. Not the shallow, vigilant sleep of a person who expects to be disturbed, but the deep, surrendered sleep of someone who has found their place. Your breathing is slow and even. Your heartbeat is steady. Your muscles have released their last remaining tension. Your mind has set down its last remaining thought. The cherry blossoms continue to fall around you, covering your shawl, your hands, the sleeping cat, the table with its empty cups and scattered strawberry caps. By morning, you will be dusted with petals, a soft, pink blanket of spring, and you will brush them away with a sleepy smile, wondering how something so light could feel so much like a blessing. But that is morning, and morning is far away. For now, there is only sleep. And the garden. And the petals. Falling. Softly. In the dark. Rest.